What's up, guys? What's up, guys? How's it going? How's it going? Welcome to the live. Welcome to the live. Sorry, I'm a little late. Just had to get on in here. I was kind of thinking about canceling it, and I'm like, man, I don't want to encourage him. But yeah. So here we are, a week before Christmas, still talking about this. I gotta say, guys, I'm like this whole thing. It's got to stop. People have got to get off the internet. They've got to go outside. They've got to stop obsessing over this, interacting with bots online and stuff. Just click out of it. Click out of it and go somewhere else. So anyway, we are here to talk about Megan Thee Stallion versus Milagro, the trial in Miami that happened, and now the injunction that Megan's lawyers are seeking against Milagro, which I've seen some people act like this is some kind of surprise, but this has always been in place because the cyberstalking claim that this is being brought under, they brought that in the original lawsuit, and it's the remedy for it. It's not really a jury trial question. It's a matter of presenting a case to a trial court, like a judge, and the judge has the discretion on whether to issue an injunction against cyberstalking. So it was always the plan to, after the trial, go forth with this injunction. But we're gonna talk about the injunction. We'll talk about the trial. We'll talk about what's coming up. I think some people probably saw NBC News interview with Lanez, where he's still just perpetuating this, keeping himself in the news. Oh, he's got new stuff to say, that kind of thing. I'm wondering if it violates the restraining order. I mean, I'm sure Megan's lawyers are going to argue that it does, but we'll talk about that too. So if you guys haven't already, you should subscribe to my Substack, legalaffairsandtrials.com. It's got, I was kind of talking to somebody earlier about how I'm in the new year. I kind of want to revamp that and get back to my roots of LA federal stuff, because this stuff I think is pretty much over after this. I mean, we're not going to be covering any more of Tory Lanez's appellate stuff or whatever after this, but I want to move away from just this kind of lawfare celebrity stuff. But I enjoyed covering the trial in Miami. I mean, obviously this was for as many times as I was mentioned in that trial, I had to be there. But if you guys were subscribed to my Substack, you would be getting my reports with all the testimony and actual quotes from court. I mean, I think the thing that kind of sets me apart and sets my coverage apart from everyone else is I write written articles that actually have actual quotes from the courtroom and really kind of takes you inside everything that's going on. So as people who are following my coverage would have noticed, I was a little disappointed in the trial. I thought it was going to be a lot better of a trial than it was, but the trial teams were not very polished at all. But just the fact that happened, that the lawyers basically sucked, should tell you how strong a case it was, that she was still able to get liability findings. And granted, the defamation claim got thrown out because Milagro was ruled media, and because Megan's lawyers didn't serve her with pre-notice beforehand, that because she was ruled media, that's why the claim got tossed. So her damages went down to $59,000 from $75,000. And I don't think anyone's going to pretend that, I mean, of course they wanted more damages. Yeah, they would have preferred it to be 75 million. But I always say that, especially in civil cases, it can be, both sides will try to claim that they won on something. But when you're trying to decide who actually won a case or who did well, you can see that you can tell by the lawyer's reaction who actually won the case. And right after this verdict came in, Megan's lawyers were relieved and Milagro's lawyers were upset. Of course, I'm sure, like I said, no one's being honest if they say that, oh, they didn't wish that the damages were higher than they did. Of course they did. And Milagro's team can look at the lower damages as a good thing, which, it is. It's good for her that it wasn't higher. But overall, like I said, Megan's lawyers were relieved with the verdict and Milagro's lawyers were upset because those 3 liability findings, That's the most important thing right there. It really doesn't matter what the damages were, 75 million. It doesn't matter at all. What they needed were those liability findings. If they had somehow not gotten a liability finding, that would have been a huge loss and a huge catastrophe for them. But no, they got those 3 liability findings. And Milagro is going to find out through this injunction that that's pretty serious. I mean, there's just such an immaturity to the response to this. And I saw her tweet where she's like upset that people aren't sticking up for her, and she ends it with "mob reigns supreme." It's like, what are you guys, 12 years old? And this, like, jury trials are so much different than like litigation. And you can have this great litigation team that does excellent work and pretrial work with the judge and written work, but they don't really know what's going on in a trial. Like, they don't know how to stand up and object. Like, if you guys haven't already, you should follow this attorney from Chicago on TikTok, Sierra Norris. She like does dances outside the courthouse with her clients when she gets them acquitted. But she had a video recently talking about teaching young attorneys to object during trial. Because, yeah, I mean, it would be hard, especially if you've never done it before. You've got to like stand up and interrupt and stuff. But that's just a trial tactic that's different than litigation. So, Megan's lawyers didn't really know what they were doing in that regard. But in this regard, this kind of, writing a brief arguing for an injunction from the judge, that's where they have a clear advantage. Like, they have a clear advantage here. It'll be interesting to see what Milagro's written opposition to this injunction motion is, because it seems like the judge is pretty much guaranteed to grant something. I don't know if it's going to look exactly like Megan's lawyers are asking, but I mean, it said in the final judgment that she issued, where she didn't issue judgment for the defamation claim. And that's an important distinction. We shouldn't say that the defamation claim was tossed, because it still definitely exists. There just isn't a judgment entered on it. And the judge said she couldn't enter a judgment on it. But I'm not really sure if anything's going to happen with that. It's going to be interesting to see if they try to appeal that to the 11th Circuit, like the decision to not enter judgment on that based on the jury's decision on Milagro being media, because I don't really see much of a appealable record on that, because they didn't really object at all during trial. But she has those new lawyers that she hired who, and the most important thing is not that they represented Donald Trump in the ABC lawsuit. It's not their experience with Trump. It's their experience with Judge Altonaga. The important thing is that lawsuit that they did, which is one of like many lawsuits that they've done. But when Donald Trump sued George Stephanopoulos and ABC News, it was just last year, the case was with Judge Altonaga. So they know what they're doing in that regard. But I think it's kind of too late, because, I mean, she says in that final judgment that the case is closed, meaning it goes to the appellate court, like if they want to litigate anything beyond this narrow issue of her granting the injunction. So she still has jurisdiction for the injunction issue. But other than that, if they want to do anything, if they want to complain about the defamation stuff being tossed or whatever, there not being a judgment on that, it would have to go to the 11th Circuit. And it just doesn't seem like there's like a good enough record for that. But they can try to get it. And in the end, there's nothing the court can really do to, adjust damages. I mean, yeah, maybe I think it's unlikely just based on how everything went. I mean, best case scenario, they would get like what, 15,000 back. It's not like they can send it back to the jury and say, give her more money or something like that. It's just done. And like I said, the most important thing here clearly was the liability finding. It's not the damages. And that's where the request for injunction is going to come in and show how important those liability findings were. Because they make an argument in here that, and they're correct, that the fact that the judge found that didn't enter judgment on the defamation claim, that doesn't mean that the jury didn't find her liable for defamation. But I think even if you cast aside the defamation claim and just don't even consider it, it's bad for Milagro. You still have everything covered with the intentional infliction of emotional distress claim. And Megan's lawyers had a line in their filing for the injunction saying that Milagro still doesn't seem to understand like the implications of this. And yeah, I mean, she was found liable for intentionally inflicting emotional distress on a gunshot victim by coordinating with her assailant who's in prison. Like, that's not that's not a good finding. And that, like I said, even if the judge casts aside all the defamation stuff, which I don't think she will, because it's not like the defamation stuff was, the jury did find a liability. The final judgment doesn't say that, but it doesn't get rid of the liability for that. I think they would still be able to have a pretty thorough injunction for cyberstalking just based on the intentional infliction of distress evidence that's come forth. But it's a pretty wide-ranging injunction when I read it, and it'll be interesting to see what exactly the judge adopts. But I mean, the thing that caught my eye, and it's the last bullet in the whole thing of requirements for her, is that it would require Milagro to actually delete old posts, and that it says anything that was the basis for the jury's verdict, which could of course be argued against because you don't know what exactly was the basis for the jury's verdict. But generally, when you have a jury verdict like that, you can argue pretty much everything. It includes like the whole kitchen sink of stuff that her lawyers put forth. So let's pull up the actual here's where it prohibits. It says Milagro must remove from the internet and related public forums all statements and postings that form the basis for the jury's verdict in this case. It also prohibits any direct, indirect, or third-person contact with plaintiff, including but not limited to written, telephonic, electronic, and social media contact for a period of 5 years. It prohibits defamatory statements about Meghann regarding her testimony in Lanez's trial. And this stuff is subjective enough. Well, it's not subjective, but it is. Like, notice how it doesn't just say that you can never talk about Meghann again. It just says no defamatory statements about Meghann. But it's just going to make one of those things where, like I said, this is where Milagro is really going to get in trouble. And this is when when Meghann's lawyers have a huge advantage just in the litigation game. Like the idea that McLymont, and it's no like diss to him, but he just doesn't have like the team and stuff. Like the idea that he's going to write like an opposition to this is just going to blow it out of the water. It's like, good luck, I mean, I just saw his post. He's a jury trial guy. He just did another jury trial. He won. He's got a post to him with it's a friend, but he got him off on a drug case or something. But he's a busy guy, and this is where Meghann's lawyers totally have the advantage. And like I said, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, it seems like something the judge would hold a hearing on, but maybe not. I mean, she heard the whole trial, and that's the thing. It's not like she needs to hold an evidentiary hearing, because that was basically the trial. She was there up on the bench and heard all this stuff. So I wonder if there'll even be a hearing. But if there is, I want to try to get over to it. But says it also prohibits any communication about plaintiff, meaning Meghann, that are intended to incite third parties to engage in threats or violence against plaintiff, her professional team, and or her family. So, and it also says Milagro can't come within 500 feet of Meghann, her residence, or any place she's expected to be, and it prohibits her from coming within 1,000 feet from Meghann's musical performances. I mean, I remember in trial where Milagro said something about going to one of Meghann's concerts, like, oh, maybe I'll go to a concert, or I think McLymont said that. He said maybe she'd go to one of your concerts. It was when McLymont was questioning Meghann, and it was kind of like, okay, that is kind of downplaying the seriousness of this. I don't think Meghann wants Milagro at her concerts, and yeah, if this is adopted in the wording that Meghann's lawyers put it, she would be banned from coming within 1,000 feet of Meghann's concerts for 5 years. It addresses the fake sexual depiction, promoting or sharing the fake sexual depiction, and it prohibits her from disclosing Meghann's personal identifying information, such as her home address and phone number. So this is, it's a little small here. But yeah. But I've got, I'll see. I've got a copy. Got a copy in here that you guys can check out. We'll see what the judge does. But like I said, I would expect an opposition written from McLymont. And I saw this. I haven't highlighted this on Twitter because honestly, guys, I'm just trying to get off that website. It's so bad. Like what Elon Musk has done with Twitter is definitely like intentional. How how he's just ruined it. But they actually cite potential criminal exposure here, which I think is a little blustery on their part. I'm like, dude, no U.S. attorney's office is going to charge Milagro with a crime. But, you know, I mean, maybe they could find somebody who's willing to do it. But they're saying that Milagro is opening herself up to criminal exposure for cyberstalking here. And they even go so far as to say that if she did get charged with a crime, she would probably get denied bail. Which I'm like, okay, I'm going to venture to guess that's actually not true, as somebody who's covered a bunch of federal cases and like seen U.S. magistrates do bail bail hearings. I mean, Milagro doesn't have much of a criminal record, like, at all, does she? And she's like, the idea that she somehow wouldn't be a sympathetic figure case in like a bail hearing like that, which if she was arrested on a criminal cyber stalking claim, I don't know. I just thought it was a little blustery on Meghan's lawyer's part. Here, let me pull that up. Their part about criminal exposure. But you know, I think they do their overall point where Milagro doesn't really seem to understand like the implications of this. And yeah, I mean, damages were limited, and maybe she's able to fundraise enough where she's not going to have to pay. She is going to probably be on the hook for attorney fees just for the video claim, which isn't going to come until after an appeal is over. But that could be that could be a lot. But it's more than just a money thing. And it was never really about the money for Meghann. Like, Meghann really gives a shit how much money Milagro gives her. I mean, like I said, I think people on Meghan's team would be kidding themselves if they said that they didn't want more damages. Of course they wanted more damages than this. But like I said, the most important thing about it all was the liability finding. So, and they got that. But this, I think them talking about the potentially criminal nature of Milagro's conduct is just them trying to reiterate that. Like I said, the idea that any U.S. attorney's office is actually going to charge Milagro with a crime for this, I don't think so. Get some kind of grand jury indictment against her. But they're saying that federal law supports a permanent injunction against Milagro and that her conduct tracks the elements of federal criminal cyberstalking, including using an interactive computer service for a course of conduct that put Meghann in reasonable fear of the death or serious bodily injury to a person, meaning her, and also attempted to cause, or would be reasonably expected to cause substantial emotional distress. And it says, defendant's conduct since the verdict demonstrates that she does not grasp the severity and potentially criminal nature of her conduct. The cyberstalking was itself done for separate illicit purposes, to interfere with the California investigation and prosecution of Mr. Peterson by retaliating against Miss Pete and bullying her into further silence. And it says, they've talked about this before, her attempting to tamper with a witness by retaliating against Emil Holland Briggs. That was the guy who cried on the stand as he testified about quitting, about all the increasing vitriol associated with working for her. And it says, were defendant to be held criminally responsible for her actions and charged with federal criminal cyberstalking, her pattern of conduct could well result in the denial of pretrial release, given her efforts to obstruct and the threat she poses to Miss Pete. Meghan's lawyers wrote. It's like, okay. Oh, all this undue harassment and doxing. Like I said, all this stuff just underscores why, like, overall, I hate these big law lawyers and their law firms and their billable hours, and they're just, they're so awful. But like I said, I think they're pretty much guaranteed to get some kind of injunction here. I don't know why they had to include all this whiny stuff about them being undue harassed and doxed by Milagro, because of Milagro's lawyer posting a screenshot of this, which I think more people should do this. Everything should be public. But if he's violating like some professional rules of conduct, which maybe he is, I don't know, they should point that out or something. But them saying that him doing this led to them being doxxed and harassed, it's like the only identifying thing on here is like her name and her photo. And if you just Google that, I mean, it's everywhere. You can find way more about her like on the law firm website. But I just think that I just wondered why they even included that. But it doesn't mean the injunction's not going to be granted. It just doesn't really seem to have anything to do with the injunction. So, okay, and the comments are really just why, like, I'm pretty well done with this case. Like, in 2026, I think we all need to, like, really move on and make an attempt to get off Twitter. Don't go on social media all the time. go to some national parks, go outside. Like this gardenia Daystar will prevail. What are you talking about? I mean, this is done. I mean, he was done after he was convicted back in, God, it was almost 3 years ago now. December 23rd, 2022. And all this stuff, I mean, I can't believe NBC gave him airtime like that. And I mean, it just shows how network TV has fallen. But I mean, it was funny how they tried to, be fair and get the other side. And they got that expert in there who talked about how this is such an uphill battle. And she was correct in how she talked about how the standard for this is that you have to, you have to show that this would lead to a different outcome. And she's completely right. That's the standard for the appeal. But the standard for a Supreme Court to even take up your case is even higher than that. Like there has to be some kind of like real pertinent legal issue that's like undecided that might be decided through this case or something like that. I mean, you have to like really have like a legal issue for the Supreme Court, and they don't have anything like that here at all. And there's such a harassing aspect to how he does this. Like I mean, it was creepy how he was talking about how he wanted to meet with Meghan or something. And like I said, her lawyers have got to be filing some kind of complaint about him violating the restraining order, because I remember when I covered that restraining order hearing, because she got what was it back? It was earlier in this year that she got a restraining order against him for 5 years. And of course, all the talk online from his people was, oh, he's done with her. He hasn't even talked about her. She's the one harassing him now. They're obsessed with her. It's like, okay, this interview that he just did on NBC where he talks about how he wants to have a face-to-face meeting with her, that is why they got the restraining order. Like that, I mean, what is this? Like, it's kind of shocking that NBC would like do that. And they don't even mention this restraining order or the fact that, some online commentator was just found liable for intentionally inflicting emotional distress on her by coordinating with Lanez. It's just, I don't know. It's weird. And there's no mention of Diana London, that like obviously grifty MAGA lobbyist who latched onto them. And it's always just been a big question of how much money was she charging her, but it's them, the Peterson family, but it's a safe bet she wasn't working for free. And all that stuff about, the rapture, was that her? Was that his fans? And they're like, oh, he's going to be out by the end of the year. I'm like, okay, this is just getting like obviously grifty. I mean, under absolutely no circumstances is Gavin Newsom ever going to pardon Lanez. That's just crazy. And I mean, we're getting to the point where Newsom might not be governor in 3 years. I mean, I'm not really completely up on the whole schedule, but he's obviously going to run for president. But I don't think it's a safe bet that we're going to get a Republican in California. It's going to be another Democrat. And I mean, Lanez's sentence, they said he's in year 3 of a 10-year sentence, but his first parole eligibility date, I think, is in September 2029. So, I mean, he's not going to be in prison forever. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens with this restraining order violation, because that's the thing. If they do rule that he violated the restraining order, what are the consequences for that? I mean, I think you could imagine there being, perhaps it could eventually lead to some incarceration, but not that much, right? It would be, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, but I can't imagine her lawyers are not preparing something right now about that NBC interview where he specifically says he wants to like meet with her face to face. And that's the thing. All his people who are just convinced that he's so innocent. It's like, supposedly Meghan is like falsely accusing him and he's like rotting in prison for a crime that he didn't commit. And he doesn't even have hard feelings for her. He just wants to meet with her and, talk to her and stuff. It's like, oh, come on. This is just, But I really hope that, especially if they get some kind of order in place against Milagro, that everybody can move on. I mean, she is obviously happy. I liked her interview where she was talking about Clay Thompson, and she said that he's the first guy that she's dated who's actually a nice person. I'm like, yeah, no, I can see that. And I have known about him for a long time because I worked at the Spokesman Review when he was playing basketball at WSU. And I'm like, okay, if this guy grew up in Rancho Santa Margarita and went to school in Pullman, I'm sure he's a very nice guy. Like she should just focus on that and be happy. And that's the thing is, like, nobody outside of, you know, the internet world that's like all about this, nobody has ever even heard of him, and a lot of people have heard of her. So I don't know. I just hope that she can get some kind of closure if there's an injunction. But and that's, like I was saying, this is where she really has the advantage, is the injunction, is her lawyers know what they're doing when it comes to that. There's no jury trial. They have to argue for that. And I feel like Milagro is kind of just at a disadvantage because of the facts, but it'll be interesting to see what her written opposition looks like to that. Because, I mean, this is serious, asking her to go back and delete stuff. And if this is implemented, which, like I said, I think there's going to be some form of an injunction, there's going to be a whole timeline for her to comply with this. And I mean, it's serious shit. And if she starts not doing it or missing deadlines and stuff, I mean, she could get in real trouble for this. So there's just an immaturity to the way that she approached the whole response to it. And like I said, I was looking at her page the other day where she said mob reigns supreme, where she's upset that people aren't sticking up for her over this. And then she says, mob reigns supreme. It's like, oh my God, you 12 years old. But we'll see here. See, they, her lawyers really get into her current work here. Let me actually pull up the document. We can go over that. Oh, she hired new lawyers. She hired, this is Megan's new lawyers, Alejandro Brito and Jelaine Garcia. I'm not sure if they, like I said, I think it's a little too late because I'm not really sure what they have to appeal, like just based on the record, because there wasn't enough objection to the jury deciding that Milagro is a media defendant. They should have just served her with pre-suit notice. If they just done that, it wouldn't have been an issue at all. But here's the actual filing here. But it says, defendant's retaliatory cyberstalking campaign has caused substantial emotional distress to Miss Pete and put her in reasonable fear for her physical safety and health. A permanent injunction against cyberstalking is warranted in light of defendant's repeated attempts to interfere with the administration of justice in relation to Miss Pete's reporting of and proceedings arising from a violent assault on Miss Pete. And it says, defendant's willingness to retaliate against those who engage in essential speech relating to the reporting of crimes in tortuous conduct, and defendant's continued harassing conduct since the verdict in this case. And that's the thing. I've seen a lot of people say that, oh, she hasn't even talked about her. I'm like, well, let's get into what it says she's done since this happened. This gets into the background here, the trial evidence, 9-day trial. It was fun to be in Miami. The trial was a little grating. And I got to say, I'm glad I got the quote in the Vanity Fair article about how people won't leave me alone, because it's kind of true. I mean, people can just harass me all they want online. That's fine. But when I'm like sitting in the hallway trying to work, or in the courtroom, somebody kept doing this to me. I was sitting in the courtroom trying to write a story, and she came up to me like 3 times, interrupting me to ask me about blah, blah, blah. It's just like, okay, I'm trying to write an article here, but let's, like I said, harass me online all you want, but please leave me alone if it looks like I'm trying to write a story, especially when I'm sitting in a courtroom. But let's pull up the filing here. Oh, but yeah, they do mention, they don't, I see somebody mentioning the Tasha K interview, which I'm not, and it's just the way my brain works, but I can't just watch those like 2-hour interviews. Like if I really needed to watch that, like for work or something, seriously, I would take the time to actually like, what I'd probably do is screen record the whole thing on silent. Like I have a phone that I screen record stuff on that has tons of room. I mean, if it's like a 2-hour interview, I can still just screen record the whole thing and then upload it, and then get the audio only and run it through like an Otter transcript and get the transcript and read it through that. Like read what I actually need to do, because you can read way faster than you can listen to people talk. But okay, what do we see here? But yeah, it's just, and that's why I didn't do too many YouTube, or I didn't do any YouTube lives when I was covering the trial, because it just being in the trial, listening to the trial all day, and then the idea of going back and just sitting online and talking. I felt it was much better to put together a story. It's kind of harder to do that, but I feel like people get more out of you. Yes, Freddie Lane, thank you. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Give me a like and subscribe if you can. I've been covering a lot of different trials on here. Like, I know I got a lot of different subscribers from like Donna Adelson trial, Karen Reed, Alicia Andrews was the last one that I like really covered in detail with all the video clips on here. So if you guys started following me through that, thank you. I'm not sure when the next one coming up is, but there's always one coming up. And oh, actually, I do know, and this isn't going to be on video because it's federal court, but Little Dirk, his trial is technically scheduled for next month, and there's a pre-trial on, I think it's January 7th, but I heard at the holiday party circuit that it's definitely going to get delayed. And I know Melanie, she does that, I'm not a lawyer, but she went to the last hearing. It was when I was in Miami, and she said that she heard them say that they might ask for a continuance. And yeah, I heard at a holiday party over the weekend that there's definitely going to be a continuance request. And of course, it's up to the judge whether to grant it. But everyone who knows the judge and has experience with him, Judge Fitzgerald, said that he'll be happy to just kick it down the road. And it's a big enough case that probably any judge would give him a continuance. But I've heard it definitely don't count on Little Dirk going to trial next month. It'll be like, it could be like near the end of the year, or somebody told me it was going to be a substantial continuance. So of course that's subjective, but it could be like a year or longer maybe, but we'll see. So I'm not really sure what the next big case is, but I want to start making more videos, like professionally produced videos about the articles that I'm writing about and about, different cases that I'm covering. Oh, somebody says, what do you think about Tory's new appeal about the evidence from the bullets not being labeled, which was discovered by Milagro's attorneys? I mean, he hasn't filed anything yet, and I just think it's not going to go anywhere. The bullets not being labeled. I mean, I haven't even read about that, but I mean, he's really exhausted his options on that, and he can keep filing stuff, but it just doesn't really have any chance of going anywhere. And at this point, I mean, I think this is all just going to start hurting his parole chances. But they can't. It's not like they're going to keep him longer than 10 years, so he's going to be out eventually. But I'm definitely not really planning on covering any of his filings very much because there's just kind of a harassing aspect to it, and I'm just sick of it. Like I said, I think we all need to like make a pledge to kind of deplug and not be so. And it's just hard because I mean, I saw the Utah governor. He's obviously making a gear for the presidency, and he has a new anti-social media commercial out. But I'm like, I can't find much I disagree with about his stance on this, that this is like brainwashing our kids with social media and the way all kids are just so attached to their phones and stuff. So hopefully there's kind of a movement to kind of get away from that. Obviously that's like way bigger and more general than just like Tory Lanez and Megan Thee Stallion. But there's just an aspect to they just keep it up, and everybody just keeps on this. And sometimes like I'll go through the responses and the replies on my Twitter account, and I'm like, wow, it's like every single one of these is a bot account. Like you can tell that they're not real accounts. It's like IA set up. They have like IA generated accounts that have like certain keywords that they use and they respond to, and they're just, oh, it's nauseating. Like we're killing ourselves with this stuff. We all just got to go outside and make it your goal to do like 52 hikes in 52 weeks, or go on a trip like somewhere cool like every month. Like I'm actually going to Honolulu on Monday. I'm going there for 6 nights, Mele Kalikimaka, but it would be my first visit to Hawaii. I'm gonna go do a bunch of stuff, to go all over. So I'm definitely not going to be like, if he files anything, or I did watch his NBC interview, and they were talking about, oh, he's going to be filing something next week. I'm like, I wonder if there could be anything else going on next week in this country that might hold people's attention. Yeah, I'm not sure. Nope, better obsess over this. It's like, come on, guys. But yeah, so yeah, thank you for the question. And I mean, it'll be interesting to actually read whatever he files to see what is he coming forth with, because I haven't really heard one way or the other. I think the NBC interview just said something about he didn't get the medical records or something from Meghann. So just kind of more of an implication that she wasn't really shot. Even though that was kind of a big takeaway from the trial I was there when Milagro testified. Like, she does believe that Meghann was shot. She knows Meghann was shot. She is not saying that Meghann was not shot. It's like, are you sure? Because you seem to say that all the time. And that's what I think really tripped her up over the liability is that, closing arguments, Meghan's lawyer's closing argument was really bad in that he didn't really go over all the evidence in this case. And it doesn't really give jurors a very good roadmap. But Milagro's overall defense to you're defaming her by saying she committed perjury was, of course, trying to show that Meghann was dishonest about some things. And it just wasn't there. Like, the stuff about Meghann saying that she had nerve damage in her left foot, and then the doctor saying that she had no nerve involvement, meaning nerve damage in her left foot. It's like, well, obviously she feels that there was some kind of hurt or pain in her left foot that was like ongoing. But I think everybody who knows Milagro's comments and her coverage of this knows full well that when Milagro talks about how Meghan's a lying ass hoe, she's not talking about the nerve damage comments. Everybody knows enough and is able to associate that with she's saying that Meghann is lying about even being shot. And I think that became pretty obvious that, well, McLymont was able to show that maybe it is just an opinion, or you can't. It's like, no, Milagro has made it so obvious over the years that when she talks about that stuff, she's talking about Meghann saying that she was even shot. And I feel like that connection was enough that the jurors who deliberated 10 hours over 2 days, that the people who wanted liability finding, and I haven't talked to any jurors, and I should try to get a hold of them, but it's just like the holidays and I've got all this other stuff to do. I don't even know if they'll talk. But to me, the verdict was pretty obviously a compromise between, and just my vibe, like I said, I felt like a real vibe shift in the trial. And I feel like there was a group of people who were more sympathetic to Milagro at the end and didn't really like the tone that Meghan's lawyer was taking in his closing. But the thing is, the people who want liability, the evidence is on their side. If they get in an argument with the people who think that this is all a pile-on or it's unfair, it completely is on the side of the people who want to find her liable, because all the evidence is there that she did do this. She's completely disingenuous up on the stand when she talks about, what the money from Daystar Peterson is for. Her rants are totally over the top. Like, her explanation for why she created this radio show, like her abusive childhood background, that makes her a sympathetic character. And I think that's why a lot of people, the momentum was really on Milagro's side near the end. But that's why there was kind of like this compromise where you had the liability findings but a small damages thing, because like I said, if you're arguing between liability and no liability, the evidence is so clearly on the people, the side of the people who want liability, that you could have a little bit of negotiation by reducing damages. But the idea that the people who don't want liability have any kind of evidence on their side for that, it's like, no. When you actually look at all the evidence, it definitely favored liability. So yeah. So we were going to get down to because people are saying that, well, Milagro hasn't even done anything since then, or she hasn't even addressed Meghann since then, which let's look at what this actually says she did, because right now we're looking at everything that she did before this. Stalked her residence online. And I remember her testimony for why she did this, why she had photos of Meghan's house online, was another thing where it's like, okay, you sound completely disingenuous, to the point it's like you can tell when she's being really genuine and real and when she's kind of making stuff up on the fly. And when she was talking about why she had the photos, because she was doing a lot of legwork on her own for the case, which I believe that, especially like Caesar McDowell in Unite the People told her that, if she wants representation, she's got to help them and do a lot of her own research. So she was saying that they were researching whether the case was properly filed in Florida. And so that's why she was researching where Meghann lived. But like I said, just the way she was testifying of it, it's just not, it's not believable, So, and I think that was an example of how in the end, the evidence which testimony is evidence, it just didn't favor Milagro in the end. But Yeah, okay, and here it is. It says defendant's harassment continues even after the jury found reliable on all 3 counts. It says defendant has been wholly undeterred by the recent verdict in this matter. This is perhaps unsurprising, given the record evidence demonstrating defendant's lack of respect for the justice system. It has only been 2 weeks since the jury entered a verdict in Ms. Pete's favor, and this court lifted its pretrial publicity gag order. And defendant has already returned to social media to resume her campaign by posting yet more disparaging comments directed at Ms. Pete. On December 1st, defendant went on Instagram Live, showing no remorse for her conduct and claiming, I'm going to start working on my mixtape, because apparently the only place you can bully people and talk crazy and pop shit is in the studio. But anywhere else is off limits, you know. So I'm going to get on my mixtape ship and make sure I channel all my energy into my raps and put that out and let that be artistic expression. Defendant's stated intent to use her First Amendment shield of artistic expression as a sword to cause further harm to Miss Pete reveals that she views the jury's verdict as a minor inconvenience, not a true deterrent. And yeah, I mean, I think especially the way everyone talks about how, you know, it's just about the money and her fans have already donated enough that she's not going to have to pay anything. It's like, oh, well, you know, who cares if she was found liable for defaming and intentionally inflicting emotional distress on a gunshot victim? Like, come on. Only in their world is that like actually a good thing. But yeah, the implications of this go far beyond, maybe not far beyond, but they go beyond money. But yeah, I mean, I think this far beyond would be fair when you look at the scope of this injunction that they're asking for. So defendant also mocked Miss Pete's emotional distress on this Instagram Live. And that's the thing. When people say that she hasn't talked about Meghann, it's like, well, maybe she hasn't talked about her directly, which, well, we'll keep reading here. But this is pretty obvious who she's talking about here. It says, she says, when a social media user commented that defendant had lost the lawsuit, she responded, I heard you blocked too. Listen, all I'm ever going to do is block y'all. I don't get on the internet and cry about what y'all say. And then, yeah, I saw this and I was just tired and was like, is Gayle King interviewing them? It's like, no, okay. So apparently it was just a CBS Miami interview that they did. But Milagro posted photos of herself on X with alongside a promotional photograph of Gayle King. And it said, which members of her audience would reasonably interpret to be a reference to Miss Pete. Yeah, I mean, Gayle King, everyone knows that Gayle's role in this whole thing is that she interviewed Meghann before Lanez's trial and asked Meghann if she'd ever slept with Lanez, and Meghann said no, which we now know is not true. And that's like the lie. That and the I stepped on glass to cops are like the two mistruths that everybody just focuses on to say that she can't be trusted. But so this is her going on CBS. Said defendant later went on air with CBS News Miami and demonstrated a lack of willingness to take accountability for promoting the deepfake video. When asked why she promoted the video, defendant responded, I think that's a tricky question because I think there are misconceptions about what actually happened. I did say go to my likes, and I did speak about it. Furthermore, when asked about whether she considered the harm of the deepfake video on Miss Pete, defendant stated, did I personally think that this would cause her to feel those ways? Absolutely not. So then on December 3rd, they're also saying that Milagro took to X to once more continue to spread misinformation about Miss Pete, misleading her followers and lying about the jury's verdict. Oh, and I thought this was a good point. And I remember when I read this, I'm like, well, this is why your guys' closing arguments should have been better, because you're supposed to be pointing this out in closing arguments. But because, I mean, there was a lot of evidence in here. And, you know, you need a roadmap to kind of show you how the evidence works for each crime, for each claim. But it says, defendant wrote that anything that had to do with mental capacity or alcoholism never even made it to the final sheet, disregarding the jury's finding that the defendant was liable for intentional inflicting of emotional distress based on her statements attacking Miss Pete's mental capacity and recreational alcohol use. Incorrect, because while the verdict form, intentional infliction of emotional distress, was about her coordinating with Lanez. An example of her coordinating with Lanez, or examples of her coordinating with Lanez, are her making statements about Miss Pete's mental capacity and her recreational alcohol use, which in the trial, it came out, it was kind of pounded home to the jury that the reason Milagro would be saying those things is because Lane told her to say those things. So, but I mean, she is right in that it wasn't part of the defamation claim. We heard a lot about the mental capacity and alcoholism, but the actual defamation claim was about the perjury. But Megan's lawyers are bringing that up here, and it says, and it reveals that notwithstanding the jury's verdict with respect to those statements, defendant intends to double down and continue to perpetuate defamatory falsehoods about Miss Pete. Yeah, I mean, for her to be even bringing that up, mental capacity or alcoholism, it's like, okay, so you're, not sorry you said that. You're just pointing out that, technically, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, I mean, for them to say that she doesn't understand the implications of this, that seems about accurate. She also wrote that the 3 defamatory statements for which the jury found her liable were not statements of fact, even though the court previously determined that they were. Yeah, that was in the dismissal motion. The ruling on the dismissal motion in February 2024 was that statements about whether someone lied in court, lied on the stand, are statements of fact because perjury is a fact. You're either charged with perjury or not. So the message of this post was clear. Defendant unequivocally denied the jury's finding and suggested to her mob of followers that prior statements about mental capacity and alcoholism were, in fact, true when she knew full well that they were false and defamatory. Defendant was not the only one levying attacks about Miss Pete and misrepresenting the verdict. Okay, and this is when I think the lawyers get into, and they didn't need to include this because any kind of injunction they get into isn't going to, McLymont can do and say whatever he wants. He wasn't the one sued for defamation here, but he says, defendant was not the only one levying attacks against Miss Pete and misrepresenting the verdict. Shortly after the court dismissed the jury, defendant's counsel issued a press release falsely claiming that defendant was found not liable for defamation. I'm sorry, guys, but I'm not actually sure, like, that right there, what I just highlighted, is a true statement. Because he did issue a press release, but, I mean, his press release says, like, contrary to reports, and it says the court's final judgment is that Milagro is not liable for defamation. Which, I mean, that's true. Like, that was the court's final judgment. It doesn't change the fact that the jury found her liable. But like I said, I feel like they should have just kept all this stuff out because it's them being all pissy at the other lawyers for like making them look bad in a press release. And it really has nothing to do with their legal argument against Milagro and Milagro's actions. Them complaining about some press release her lawyer issued and saying that he got something wrong when like actually like I said, and they don't include his whole quote in here. They just say that she was found not liable for defamation. So initially when you see that, you're like, well, yeah, because the jury found her liable. But I mean, it is true that right after that happened, and it's a little confusing because, I mean, the verdict's been read, you're typing on your phone, you're going outside to type on your phone, you're taking notes. There's only one of you. There's like 15 of them up there. You're listening to everything. But the judge did say that she was only going to enter judgment for the 2 claims. She didn't actually do it that day. It took a day to file the judgment. But I mean, for McLymont to issue I'm just not sure McLymont was actually like wrong here. So like I said, they should have just kept all this stuff out. Because I mean, even if McLymont had just issued a press release that was totally false, it's not like he's going to be covered on this injunction. So I don't know. And him posting the private, as a journalist, it's hard for me to get too upset about this stuff. It's like, yeah, take a screenshot of the email and put it on there for us all to read, And any journalist should be a little weary of the word doxing. Because, I mean, what is doxing other than, and I know it's like, and you can definitely see examples of this online, like the whole swatting thing where it's like people actually go out and they're like, or you've seen, here is this person's home address, and it encourages people to like, yeah, call the SWAT team on somebody's house or something. But you've seen posts where it's like, here is all this identifying information on this person. Here's their home address. Here's their kids. Here's their, and it is just encouraging you to take that information and go harass them. But has anybody, and I mean, I'm on there a lot and I get tagged in all the, I mean, I get harassed by Milagro's followers all the time and get tagged on there. Meghan's lawyers do not get harassed that much on there. Oh my God, are you freaking kidding me? And like I said, they can at least like do billable hours. Every time they open a nasty email, they can probably do billable hours for it. So I don't know. I just had to roll my eyes at this. And like I said, like legally, this does not even really help their argument for an injunction against Milagro, just whining about some press release that McLymont issued that, like I said, arguably, like maybe not even arguably, it's like McLymont's issuing a press release saying that the court's final judgment was that Milagro is not liable for defamation. It's like, that's fucking true. And it's an example of how Meghan's lawyers kind of fucked this up, because not only was this kind of a must win, this was such an important case in terms of like being out in front of the narrative. Like I've really not been very impressed with Meghan's team and just how they approach like press on this. They never really give any kind of statements or anything. Like, I mean, they even say in that NBC News article that they reached out to Meghan's team, and you want to know exactly what the contact was like that on, and how much time they gave them to respond, but they just said they didn't respond. It's like, I don't know. Yeah. And really, yeah, somebody says those attorneys are not great. They just know people who don't know the law will fall for whatever they say. Kind of true. I had to kind of wince at the Judge Joe Brown rant about it, because he was correct, especially when he talked about how the attorneys at these firms charge such huge fees and they have so few clients and cases and trials under their belt that they're basically like interns. It's fucking true. But like I said, right now, that trial experience versus litigation experience is totally different. And these, like, Meghann absolutely has the advantage right here, in terms of seeking this. And when you go into the filing, you can see, to say this is unprecedented, I don't think it's true. There's definitely been other federal injunctions against cyberstalking. And that would be an interesting thing to go through, is to go through those cases and see exactly what they look like. I saw one in here. I thought it was Weinstein that they cited. Maybe not. Well, I don't know. Oh, here. We were going through what her conduct is. So yeah, because people were saying, oh, she hasn't even talked about her since then. I'm like, not liable for def. Oh, this one, it gets into the press release. Oh, and this is the Tasha K. Interview, I'm assuming, as recently as December 15th. She accused Hall and Briggs of committing perjury. Also alleged that Miss Pete made herself out to be the Black Regina George, who in the film Mean Girls was a bully. And she attempted to shift blame to Miss Pete's manager, Travis Ferris, stating that he should have been up there. And this is the kind of stuff where it's like, wow, that is a really stupid thing to say. That Ferris testified, who, like, he also testified about like reading Bible verses to Meghann, and like, I mean, he really seemed like that guy is a true friend, you know? And he did show her this stuff, but I mean, she's like, obviously she has an interest in like what her online profile is and stuff. But the whole online narrative was that, oh, Ferris is the one intentionally inflicting emotional distress on her because he's showing her all the nasty posts from Milagro. It's like, yeah, it's not the person who's making the nasty posts who's at fault here. But it says, throughout the live stream, defendant downplayed her defamatory statements as mere questions, undermining the defamatory and severe emotional impact of her posts on Miss Pete. Says this was just the latest example of defendant's harassment against Miss Pete. Absent an injunction, defendant's gamemanship will not stop. Through crowdfunding efforts designed to wholly offset the jury's damages awards, defendant has eschewed the consequences of her action. As their crowdfunding page shows, defendant will continue to characterize her defamatory and tortuous conduct online as rooted in the right to speak, right to question, and right to know. The jury's findings should not be regarded in this manner. So yeah. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see like I said, what the response is, what the judge was. Is there even going to be a hearing on this? Because, I mean, does the judge need, just certainly doesn't even need an evidentiary hearing. That's what the trial was. But is she going to want to hear argument on this? I want to know, because hopefully they don't just schedule a hearing, in 3 days or something. Like if you get a notice, the hearing's in 3 days, because I want to go to it. I got to fly across the country, but still. So yeah, so here, that was the like I said, if you guys go to legalaffairsandtrials.com, my Substack, I've got it all here. You guys can check it out. I've got the document and everything in here, kind of write up on everything. But yeah, like I said, overall, I had a good time in Florida, checking everything out, going to the trial. The courthouse is great. They've got chickens out there, roosters. Miami's nice too. Downtown in Miami's a nice place. But let's see if we've got. Let's see. One of my videos. Let's see if we've got some videos here. Oh, I went out to the Everglades. That was good. Here. Oh, there they are. Wow. That's Meghann daughter. Good morning. And this is after.
I'm just happy.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, there's the girl. I sometimes I'll get up there a little bit, but I saw some Hollywood Unlocked, or what was the website? It like posted a video of somebody else running up to her and said that it was me or something. I'm like, you guys can't even get this stuff right, But it was fun just being at the courthouse and taking videos and taking notes and everything. But it was a lot of work to put all these stories together. But I'm proud of what I did. Like I said, if you guys go here, that's kind of all I've been covering recently. But I've got everyone was kind of surprised when they deliberated all day Wednesday before Thanksgiving and then came back the next Monday. They didn't have a verdict, but the diss track stuff that was big. And I mean, I hopefully I can talk to some jurors. I need to try to reach out to them, but we don't know why the damages were what they were. But this is kind of the stuff. I mean, you did get the impression that she has a lot of people talking shit about her, and maybe that contributed to jurors thinking that it needed to be limited or something. But we can see about that. But Venus the Hottie, thank you so much for the super sticker. I appreciate it. But yeah, I hope you guys are all getting ready for good times, like next week and everything with family and friends and stuff. It's kind of, these last 2 weeks are kind of the time of year to just kind of hang out and not do much. So like I said, I was surprised that NBC actually put Lanez on camera like that. And I mean, her lawyers, Megan's lawyers, have got to say that violates the restraining order. Like, why did they get a restraining order if they're not going to complain about him doing stuff like that? I mean, him actually saying that he wants to meet with Meghann face to face, like, okay, we'll see. But then the restraining order, I kind of wonder, like, okay, so what are the consequences for him violating this? He's already in prison. And I mean, restraining order violations, I mean, what could the possible length of incarceration associated with that be? But I think we're going to find out, because I mean, I have to imagine that Megan's lawyers are writing something up right now. But like I said, I mean, it was shocking that NBC News put him on like that. Like, clearly there's just like something in the water with everything. Like, we're all just going crazy with everything. I mean, it's kind of sad with everything that's going on in the country. But somebody asked if she can sue NBC. Well, she can just sue anyone she wants. I mean, that's kind of thing. You can file a claim against anyone. Might get thrown out, but she doesn't have any case against NBC. I mean, NBC is totally within their rights. Oh, we thought it was a news story. Here's a person who says he's being falsely. They just they can't be sued for doing that. But for her lawyers would probably send them a email being like, "Why are you giving this guy airtime for?" And it was just funny how you could tell that the reporter was trying to get both sides of the story by getting that expert to talk about how she how the standard for this is so high that he has a real uphill battle, because in appeals you have to show that this would have like a material outcome on your case, like the jury would have decided another way if this evidence had come in, which she's totally correct. That's the standard for appeals. But this is, now he's talking about filing stuff with the California Supreme Court. Like that's a different standard on this too. But yeah, I see Herbert Freeman saying, and I saw some people online who are usually like rah Lanez being like, oh, why didn't he give this interview to Milagro? I'm like, I don't know. But it's just like, there's just something in the water with this whole thing. Like, I mean, I think one of the strangest and just the weirdest like character in this whole thing over the last year has got to be Diana London. I mean, she's not that strange in that, like, yeah, just look at the engagement that this gets online, especially on Twitter. Like, if you're looking for like a pet issue that you want to kind of latch onto and start getting some name recognition for, not a bad one to choose for. I mean, every post gets tons of hits. I mean, if she can get on there and, oh, Tory Lanez is innocent, I've looked into the case, but like this lady is like such an obvious grifter. Like, she can't help him. I mean, she doesn't have any connections. I mean, if it was a federal case, maybe, because she clearly has ties to the MAGA administration people. But I'm like, Gavin Newsom is not going to listen to this woman. I mean, this is just kind of crazy. And if you're really measuring the depths of the grift and how much this was just a total scam, you have to know about the actual financial arrangement. Like, was she being paid for this? Which, of course, I have no details on. That's not like something we would be privy to. But one thing I've learned over the years is that people do not work for free. There is no way she wasn't charging them a ton of money for that, which is freaking gross, man. Ugh, man. Paulina, that legislature. Yeah, where it's another thing. Okay, is this some kind of like kickback scheme? That's crazy. Because, I mean, hopefully she doesn't have any kind of financial arrangement in the whole thing. That would be like totally illegal. But yeah, I mean, the whole thing was just so strange. And you could kind of see, like, if you really took the time, you could probably create some kind of flowchart or tree of like these weird YouTubers and bloggers in the MAGA movement, or kind of wannabe MAGA movement, who are connected to this. Because after Diana London got on the case, all of a sudden there were like just these random people. Hey guys, I looked into the Tory Lanez case. I think he might be innocent. I'm going to do a 2.5 hour YouTube on it. And it's like, wait, what is there's some connection to all of this. And I mean, it has to be financial. I mean, some of these people, like, what is the incentive in this to do this here? And it's just kind of funny that it went freaking nowhere. I mean, that's the thing. It's like this NBC interview. All NBC it does is really hurting their credibility here. Like, it's just not, none of this stuff is ever going to go anywhere. If anything, it can't be helping his parole chances in 4 years, 5 years, or whatever that is. But no, 3. It's 4 years. September 2029 is when his first eligibility is. But it's like, God, when I saw that NBC interview last night, I was like, are you kidding me? Are we still doing this here, guys? Like, oh, I'm going to be filing some stuff next week. All right, next week, the famous time in America when everyone is just sitting on the internet waiting for something to obsess over that has nothing to do with them. It's like, yeah, please go spend times with your friends and families, guys. Like, whether you're Jewish, Christian, none of those. Like, it's just a time to take time off, eat food, go places, go to football games, that kind of thing. Go to Honolulu for 6 nights. That's what I'm going to do, that kind of thing. But, oh yeah, the deposition, and that's one thing I need to look into. Can I get those, can I get the exhibits from trial? And because it's a civil case, I was thinking I just need to contact the courts, but I'm pretty sure they all go back to the lawyers after the case. It's not like with a criminal case, they would keep them around, but I think all the exhibits went back to the attorneys. But there's definitely some exhibits there that would go far, that are entertaining. Like, we never saw Aiden Ross's deposition, thankfully, but academics. And that was one thing where I just felt like the case was way too big. They had everything in there that they needed, but like academics should not have even been mentioned in the case. And I think their point was the lawyers wanted to show that Meghann or that Milagro was like worse than academics, that academics had like taken the post about DNA down and apologized or something. But it was just like kind of a big distraction. And it was kind of refreshing that he was not a complete asshole during his deposition. He was being restrained. But guys, like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of these lawyers in these big law firms. And those depositions were awful. I mean, the way they went on for, like I said, I kind of liked academics' coverage of his own deposition. Where it's like, yeah, put it on live stream. Show how they're showing their own chats and stuff. Do it, dude. Like, and the questions they were asking him, they actually showed this in court too. But one of the deposition questions, the lawyer asked academics, they're like, "Oh, we need to do foundational stuff. So, are you aware that Tory Lanez is in prison?" And he's just like, "Yes, I'm aware." Like, it's just, yeah, hopefully we can get that one and put it on. But, you know, part of me was also like, man, I don't want to encourage people. Like, everybody just needs to like kind of move on, you know? Yeah, Aiden Ross. At that point, I was just like so tired of sitting in court where I was like, man, they better not show another Aiden Ross depo. But I mean, like I said, they had everything they needed. Like one thing that I thought was really bad for them was Caesar. And they were kind of working on the fly because in the very beginning of the trial, I was like, what the fuck? This case is way too long, guys. Like you do not need all this stuff in here. Like, what are you guys even doing here? I mean, but the Caesar McDowell deposition, they played 45 minutes and I covered it. I mean, he's so like raunchy in it, and he does not help Milagro at all. The way he talks about, you know, hiring a lawyer or representing her at first, and then his conversations with Lanez, the way he's refusing to answer any questions about it. It went on for 45 minutes. And when it was playing, I was like, man, she is so sunk after this. Like, this is really, really bad for them. And it was a court break then where it was like, you know, everyone's on recess for 10 minutes. And I heard the lawyer say, okay, when we get back, we've got another hour of deposition to play. And I just remember thinking to myself, I'm like, we need to hear more from Caesar after that. I don't think we need to hear more. It's like less is more, guys. Like you're going to ruin your stuff if you're just like putting too much stuff forth. And all I know is when we came back from recess, we did not see more of Caesar's deposition. Like it stopped after that and they went on to the next witness. Cause it's like, yeah, guys, like no more, like this is done, you know, it was just like too much. But like I said, you can tell in the end who won and who's really happy with the verdict just by the lawyer's reactions. And Megan's lawyers looked relieved and Milagro's lawyers looked upset. Like one of them was actually crying a little bit because with the jury deliberating the way they did, they were really hoping that she was going to get a defense verdict. And honestly, I thought like the closing argument was so bad. I was like, dude, I think O'Sullivan might be throwing this whole case right now. Like they might have just lost this case in closing argument. But that just shows like when you actually look at the evidence in the case, the payments from Sunstar, her statements, her crazy rants about Meghann. I mean, especially in the beginning, the momentum was so against her. And it started to kind of against Milagro. It started to kind of shift in her favor. And I think part of that was we moved courtrooms. I mean, there's just a vibe shift that happens, but there was some kind of problem with the projector in Altonaga's courtroom. So we moved across the hallway to a smaller courtroom, and it was Milagro had been testifying. She'd been on that stand for a couple of days, and she is not at all a sympathetic figure when you hear her rants about Meghann or her rants about me. But I mean, she is a sympathetic figure to some, especially to some people when you get into her background about, you know, how she grew up. Her mom went to prison when she was 5. Her grandma used to verbally abuse her. She started a radio show. And I mean, I remember the first time I heard Milagro talk, I was like, wow, she must talk that way because every single adult in her life talked to her that way when she was growing up. And that's kind of freaking sad. So it's stuff like that makes her a sympathetic character. And then when it's the day before Thanksgiving, I remember thinking, I was like, wow, she's the final witness. I mean, they're not going to hit her with a big verdict the day after Thanksgiving like that, you know, or the day before Thanksgiving like that. And so when they waited and came back on Monday, I was like, this actually could really favor Meghann because it could be easier for them to hit her with a big verdict after that. But like I said, I want to actually talk to the jurors, but obviously there had to have been some kind of compromise with the smaller damages figure, but I really don't think it matters. Like, the liability findings are what they needed here, and this injunction is going to be what really shuts her down. Like, I mean, in the end, yes, civil cases are all about money, but they're also not. Like, you can get an injunction from it, and the injunction has always kind of been the point of it. It's like, what can they do to actually shut Milagro up? And this injunction that they're going for is pretty serious here. I mean, like I said, I've got it here on Legal Affairs and Trials. Their actual proposal is listed in my, I've got screenshots of it in there, and actually you can find it on Twitter too, but we all need to get off that website. Have you guys been on, I don't know if Facebook is like just for the old people now, but I've, my Facebook page that I've had since 2004, since I was a senior at University of Oregon. It was like 6 months after Mark Zuckerberg started Facebook, and University of Oregon was one of the universities that had like a edu address. If you used your Oregon edu address, you could start a Facebook page. So I started that, and I monetized on there, posting a bunch of stuff on there now. It's kind of, I'm up to like 40,000 followers. You can tell that Facebook is really taking off. And guys, more so than any other website, like any other social media app, it is just incredible how many people are on there, and then all the information that you can find about them. I mean, everybody. I mean, wedding photos. I mean, even people who have their profiles locked down pretty well, you can tell if you really tried to figure some stuff out, like where they that live, that kind of thing, you could. I mean, it's just incredible how much information on there. And it's just, you just wonder what Facebook is doing with it, you know, all their stuff with AI. Like, I'm going to go through the chat here. I need to get a moderator, and my friend Shatter is going to moderate. And so do you think Tory violated his restraining order? I mean, it sure seems like it. Like, the restraining order said direct or indirect contact or communication. So it's pretty vague, but it's like he's talking about how he wants to meet with her face to face. I mean, I think that counts as indirect contact when he's communication. Like, I mean, I think her lawyers are definitely going to be arguing in a filing as soon as next week that was a violation of the restraining order. But it's just kind of like, what are the consequences for this? You know, he's already in prison. Like, but gosh, I couldn't believe NBC put him on camera like that. And it's just like, man, network TV is just so on its like last death throes. Like, we're screwed, man. I told somebody it's a good example of how we all need to sign off in 2026. But it says, thank you, Megan, for your breakdown. I've been waiting for your experience in courtroom. Yeah, I know. I need to get on here more and chat a little bit more. It was just, it was a big thing. Like driving. I flew across the country to Florida, and there was kind of with the hydration there with the climate change. I kind of had some issues there, but I need to get on here more and talk to you guys. Can you explain that the new media only reflects the requirements people must take before they sue? Yeah, like the only reason that defamation claim didn't get a judgment entered on it is because Milagro was labeled media by the jury. And under Florida law, if you're a media defendant, you need to be served with pre-suit notice. You need to be, like, before you can be sued, you need to get some kind of notice, like a warning saying, you're saying libelous stuff, I'm going to sue you if you don't retract it. And they didn't do that with Milagro. And during the dismissal motion, Milagro's defense argued that the defamation claim should be dismissed because they didn't do that. But the judge ruled that she's not a media defendant. So it saved the claim and moved it forward. But for some reason, like in the middle of the trial, the judge was saying that she was going to have the jury decide it. And this seems like something like Megan's team should be able to appeal, but it just didn't seem like they created any kind of record. Like, there wasn't any kind of vehement objection to that. It just kind of happened. And then the jury decided. And then I thought it would be more of a question of whether the judge would do more to decide whether to adopt it. But she kind of adopted it just outright. And I thought it was like, I figured they probably would rule her media. And if you see how they answered it, they didn't say she was like good media. They said that she was, you know, not not doing things the right way, but that she was doing it the way a lot of other media organizations do it, and that she's immediate because of that. So legally, the only consequences that should have been from that is it means that damages must be proven instead of assumed. But because Meghan's lawyers didn't serve Milagro with pre-suit notice, it meant that the defamation claim goes away. Which, like I said, that seems like a pretty hefty legal issue that should be something that they litigate on appeal. But the record, it was such in trial, like lawyers kind of just let it happen. You know, there's no real appealable record. Like how when you read in Lanez's appeal, when they talk about how he didn't object to this in trial and he can't raise the issue now, it would be the same thing with this if they tried to raise it on appeal. I think that's my take on it. But they must be planning to do something because she hired those lawyers who have experience with the defamation case and Judge Altonaga. And I don't think they wrote that motion for injunction. I think the motion for injunction was written by the Quinn team. So I'm wondering what these new lawyers that she's hired, like if they're going to try to do something. I'm not really sure there's much they can do. And frankly, I don't know. I don't know if they really want to appeal. Like they got what they need. They needed the liability findings. And best case scenario, if they appealed the media thing, it would get the defamation judgment and get them $15,000. If they can get this injunction, that's what they need. That's the most important thing. I don't think it really matters that the damages were low. And even if the judge says, okay, I'm not going to consider anything under defamation because I didn't enter judgment on that. And I'm not sure she will, because her not entering judgment really had nothing to do with like the actual claim, the jury's decision. They still have that intentional infliction of emotional distress claim that seems very bad. Like it seems like they could get everything they needed under that. Catch the replay. Yeah, they still have to tally up her legal fees. And that's the judge said that she does that after the appellate process is exhausted. So once the 11th Circuit is like done with the case, then it'll be back in her hands. And then they'll decide attorney fees. So it's for the video claim. And of course they can argue, like it should only be for the video claim. Like it doesn't mean that the attorneys can try to saddle with Milagro with the fees for the defamation claim, but it is going to give them a lot of flexibility to try to put a lot of stuff in there. You know, she could get hit with a pretty big bill, I think, but yeah, please don't interview jurors. Yeah, okay, and I kind of agree. Don't add to the circus. Yeah, no, exactly. Who cares? And one of the jurors immediately said no, like right after. I doubt any of them really want to talk. And it's just like, I don't know. People need to move on. It's just like this case has been going on for too long, you know? I mean, not this one, but just in general. Like it's 2026. People need to find something. Yeah. So what's your overall prediction of what judge will grant? I definitely think Meghann will get most from injunction, but not all. Yeah, I kind of agree. I wouldn't want to, I don't know exactly what she's going to get, but it seems like she's going to get something. And I mean, if you just go individually into the requests, it seems like all of them are supported. Like the thing that kind of jumped out at me, I'm like, and I knew that like, oh, that's the thing that I need to highlight on social media because that's going to get people's attention, that she has to go back and delete old posts. But I'm like, that makes sense. I mean, the jury ruled that these posts and this conduct was defamatory and intentionally inflicting emotional distress on a gunshot victim. Like, I just think about and this got hardly any attention, but when Nicki Minaj sued the blogger, her name's Nosy Ho, and it's spelled, Ho is spelled like Heaux or something, but it was just a settlement. But she was required in the settlement. I think she had to delete stuff too. And she's like prohibited from saying anything about Nicki or Kenneth Petty in the future. And she didn't pay anything up front, but if she violates the settlement order, she could have to pay $50,000 per violation. And I'm pretty sure that involves she had to go back and delete stuff. And the settlement order actually has her apology in it. She's like, I, Miss Ho, hereby apologize or something like that. It's like, yeah, this is pretty real. Yeah, no, the way all of them, they were just sitting up there with Tasha K. It was like, especially Tasha K. I mean, Tasha K got walloped in that Cardi B lawsuit. I mean, falsely saying that Cardi had like STDs and stuff. It's like, I don't know. It was just awful. It's like, yeah, I don't think this is anything we should like celebrate, you guys. But I can see that. Yeah, there was an article months ago stating at least 66% of Twitter are bots. I 100% believe it. I see it in my response all the time. Like a lot, some of it is real. You can kind of you can sense when something takes off with like real accounts versus bot accounts. But yeah, make me a moderator, please. I'd love to. Yeah, need to get more into the lives. It's kind of a matter of just consistency and making sure the algorithm recognizes you. Here, get the thing back on screen. Permanent injunction. Yeah, she did a good job paying the poor me, making out that she was broke, and I think that's why they awarded the fees were so low. Yeah, and that was one thing I thought Megan's lawyer should have done a better job of kind of highlighting the discrepancies between that. Like on the one hand, Milagro was presented as this like big businesswoman who had, you know, a registered LLC in Texas, which I understand you can have all that and still have like not have that much money. But it was kind of like this back and forth between whether she had a lot of money or and was really established or, you know, what. So, but yeah, I think having her on the stand for 2 days, the way she did as the final witness, and then Megan's lawyers, like I think they just banked on, and it was a good thing to bank on because in the end, the jury did believe her, but they didn't question her long enough. Like they questioned her for like an hour and a half in direct exam, and then McLymont's cross was really long. And I think Megan's lawyers just felt confident that, oh, it wasn't anything we need to worry about. And it's like, well, maybe, but you still need to get more questions into Meghann like that. Like, but they didn't even ask her any questions on redirect. And I remember when Judge Altonaga asked if there was going to be redirect of Meghann and her lawyers said no, I thought Altonaga looked visibly shocked that they said no. I mean, my jaw like dropped. I was like, you're not going to ask her any questions? She's the plaintiff in the case and you're trying to get like millions of dollars from this jury. You need to like go back over her story again, you know, but they didn't ask her any questions. And so the last that they really heard from her was the cross. Then it went into Milagro. They did get Meghann back on the stand for like 10 minutes because McLymont asked her about violating the gag order by answering that question to just some random fan who was outside and was like, hey, what does this case mean to other bloggers? And she's like, you have the right to, you know, the freedom of speech doesn't mean the freedom to bully or something. And the judge ruled that was in violation of the gag order. And the sanction was Meghann would be called up to the stand again to be like asked about that. So McLymont asked her about that for over like 10 minutes. And we really didn't hear anything else from her. And then it was Milagro for like 2 days. And I remember somebody in Twitter when I was sharing some comments, some testimony quotes from Milagro was like, hey, are there any more quotes from Meghann? Like, we need to hear more from Meghann. It's like, we haven't heard from her in like a day. Like she just got cross-examined and her lawyers didn't even ask her any questions after that, you know? So it was just annoying. But, didn't they use a clip of you saying that? No, they should have just used the clip. They asked Milagro about it. Me saying that she was a journalist or like saying that she was like new media or something in that HBO documentary. So yeah, they asked her about that. And I was annoyed that they didn't object for hearsay, Megan's lawyers. And I think it was presented for state of mind. And that's an exception to hearsay. There's like different exceptions to hearsay. And one is you're giving the hearsay testimony because it establishes state of mind. And I think that's what they thought it was doing for Milagro. They wanted to establish to the jury that Milagro had the state of mind, that she was a journalist. No, I don't think that would freaking fly because it's not Milagro's state of mind of whether she's a journalist. It's the jury's state of mind. So, but that was just another example of her lawyers just not objecting to freaking anything that they should object to. What do I think attorney fees will be? I know Meg's lawyers were probably expensive, but a judge won't clean Milagro's pockets, right? Yeah, I'm not, and I've got sirens going by here, but I'm not totally sure. And a lot of that just comes down to how well do you know the judge, and that's when it really helps that Meghann got those lawyers in who have like really recent experience with her. But because Milagro's side should be able to make a good argument that it needs to be limited because it's only for the video. Like her lawyers can't loop in, Megann's lawyers can't loop in all their hours that they spent on the other claim, the intentional infliction of emotional distress, the defamation. It's only supposed to be for the video. But then her lawyers can also argue that the video was such a big part of the case that it kind of touched everything. So I think they can include a lot in there. It'll be interesting. The fees are huge for those firms, though. It's going to be crazy. Like I said, if they're getting any nasty emails from Milagro supporters, guaranteed they're putting it on their billable hours when they keep track. There's like a whole ledger that they keep. Some of them, they have programs, but I mean, they will keep track down to like 5 or 10 minutes. They'll do like a sixth of an hour, a fifth of an hour, that kind of thing. And they charge a lot. I'm not sure. I'm not sure who else she's going to sue. I'm not sure she really has much of a case against anyone else. Like academics and stuff. I'm not sure. We'll see if she does, but Milagro is purposely misleading her viewers. Yeah, that was crazy times. The trial, man, it's been 3 years though, it's over and it's just still, I mean, like I said, I couldn't believe NBC put him on the air like that. It's like, dude, are you kidding me? They recently discussed being doxxed because of Milagro's lawyers posting emails. What's your take? Oh, I thought that was stupid. Doxed. I mean, what is the word doxed other than, I mean, it used to be newspapers, if they wrote about like freaking anyone, they included their home address, like down to the exact like street number. That was years ago, but it's just different. It's to say, I've been harassed, and I wouldn't even call it harassment, like emails and nasty comments on Twitter. It's cyber harassment, but to say that it's actual harassment, it's cyberbullying, and doxing, like I said, journalists should be very skeptical of the word doxing and what that actually is and the way it's applied to like Taylor Lorenz identifying somebody, like naming an online person who does all this stuff and saying like in general, the city where they live, she gets like ridiculed for doxing someone. It's like, no, that's called like reporting on it, But I just feel like her lawyers are just kind of like whining about stuff. It's like, oh, at least you can freaking do billable hours every time you have to deal with this. I guarantee I get harassed way more than they do online, but we're here while Meg's running around a mansion with Clay. Yeah, no, that's another thing. We all need to get the hell off online. Like we need to all get better at living our lives and not being online. But yeah, hopefully Meghann has a good year with Clay Thompson, the first nice guy she's ever dated. I saw that interview she did. Yeah, no, the interview, and they didn't even play that video. And for him to talk about how, oh, I never hurt women, blah, blah, blah. It's like, have you seen the cat video? I mean, I thought the trial made way too much of a focus on the cat video. I mean, you could make an argument that it shouldn't even really be part of the trial because Milagro really didn't have anything to do with the cat video other than she did promote it. And she asked like Daystar, is that a horse's leg? But you could tell they really wanted to play up the cat video because it's just such a shock and everything. But I thought they started focusing on it way too much. But yeah, no, the NBC news interview with this, oh, come on. Content creators are super excited about being new media as if it means they can say whatever they want, whether it's true or false. More will get sued. Yeah, exactly. It's like defamation has always been around, Well, we'll see. But anyway, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I think I answered everything. Yeah, he claims he didn't have a criminal record, and I guess it was a diversion. He got a diversion and the case got dropped, that case in Florida or something. It's like, well, you've got a criminal record now, dude. It's 3 felonies. He's like, oh, I had no history of any violence against women. It's like, well, you do now, dude. Okay. I mean, in his whole actual, people are like, oh, he must be innocent if he's vehemently denying this. He just said he wants to meet face to face with Meghann, who supposedly is the one who's like responsible for his false incarceration. He's like, doesn't even really seem that mad at her. It's like, come on, guys, wake up. Like, in that apology call he made, it's just, yeah, that's everything. But like I said, 2026 is coming up. I'm going to Hawaii next week. I'm not going to be posting any kind of filings that he made or anything like that. But hopefully you guys all have a great time with your family, friends, whatever you're going to do. Just take some time off if you need to. Sign off. We'll all kind of reset in 2026. Find me online, like find me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Facebook is kind of the new one that I'm getting on. And I'll see you guys later. Thanks so much.